I want to dive in, of course, with the news that happened over the weekend. 2 points of news that are noteworthy and are very important. The first of which is that we finally got our hands on the Robert Hur tapes. Now, remember, Robert Hur was investigating Joe Biden for his mishandling of classified documents. Joe Biden mishandled classified documents allegedly by putting the documents in the garage, and none of us were really that overly animated about it if it meant that Donald Trump simultaneously was also not going to be indicted for similar charges for the January 6th related document case and the document case beyond that when they raided Mar-a-Lago. The more interesting part of this, though, and remember they recommended no charges for Joe Biden. Remember when Robert Hur wrote this report, this scathing report saying that Joe Biden does not have the mental acuity to be president? Now, we've known this. And what I'm about to tell you is without a doubt one of the most egregious, one of the most outrageous examples of not just media bias, but intentional and repeated media malpractice in American history. We get asked all the time by members of the media, why do you guys not trust us? Where does this come from? This right here is why the American people, why the media far too often has become the enemy of the people. Remember, Hur said that Biden would just seem like a forgetful old grandfather. So that's why he wasn't worth indicting. He was essentially too old and too feeble to prosecute. This guy's barely living is basically what Robert Hur said. And the media told those of us that noticed Joe Biden's mental decline for years that you are wrong, that you are spreading mis- and disinformation. People were smeared and canceled and silenced because we saw it in right-wing circles because we actually saw the videos. Publicly, where Joe Biden was unable to mutter sentences. And the media, I would say they should be ashamed of themselves, but I don't even know if they're capable of feeling shame that requires some form of self-awareness, that requires the media to have some sort of understanding that they should be in the pursuit of truth, but not in the pursuit of power. What I'm about to play for you here should take your breath away. This guy was president of the United States. There's so many questions here. The first of which is, who was running the country? The second which is, why were we not able to get these tapes last year? The New York Times in June of 2024 said Biden was being smeared by misleading videos. That's what we were being told. We were being told that misleading videos were smearing Joe Biden's character and presidency. That you're a right-wing disinformation artist. And the media did not cover it. In fact, they covered it up. The media actively covered it up. And I'm going to connect all the stories together because also breaking yesterday was Joe Biden's prostate cancer diagnosis. I don't wish that upon him. I actually don't want my political adversaries and enemies to get sick and to die. We all die eventually. But let's be honest. The cancer announcement is, of course, directly correlated as a cover-up because of these Hur tapes. They were waiting to announce the news of Joe Biden's cancer diagnosis because of what you are about to hear. Hold your breath. This guy was president of the United States. Play cut 186.
Where did you keep papers that related to those things that you were actively looking?
Well, I don't know. This is what, 2017, 18, that area?
Yes, sir.
Remember, in this time frame, my son is either been deployed or is dying. And so it was, and by the way, there were still a lot of people at the time when I got out of the Senate that were encouraging me to run in this period, except the president.
Now, he was beyond struggling to hear, I'm sorry, it was beyond struggling to say the basic timelines. This guy was president of the United States. And also, some of the media is like, well, we never knew because of these tapes. I mean, these tapes are really bad. Honestly, like Joe Biden publicly is just about as bad as we just heard on this her tape. They knew how bad this was. But the media hated Donald Trump so much. The media hated our conservative movement so much that they were adamant that Joe Biden should continue as president of the United States, regardless of the fact that he could not be president. And then, breaking yesterday, play cut 179.
Breaking news out of the White House about former President Joe Biden. His office just revealed that the 46th president is diagnosed with an aggressive form of prostate cancer.
So they announced that Joe Biden has prostate cancer 2 days after the Her reports. Everybody, they were running this man for re-election less than 10 months ago. They're saying that the prostate cancer has metastasized straight to the bone. Sorry to hear that. Prostate cancer is notoriously very, very slow moving. This is another one of Joe Biden's piece of conversation with Robert Hur, play cut 196.
And what's happened in the meantime is that Trump gets elected in November of 2017? 2016. All right. So, why do I have 2017 here?
That's when you left office, January of 2017.
Okay. But that's when Trump gets sworn in.
Right.
January.
Right. Correct.
Okay. Yeah. And in 2017, Bo had passed, and
he keeps thinking that Donald Trump was elected in 2017, and they keep on correcting him. And look, we have to get to a break here, but how many times does he have to mention the fact that Beau Biden was dying? Was this just a crutch, I should say, that he was using at every corner and every single turn? Beau Biden died in 2015. We know that Joe Biden did not have the mental faculties. I said this to the face of reporters for years, and they said, oh, no, you're just a right-wing extremist. And these reporters actively covered up one of the greatest scandals in American history. Praise the Lord we were able to get through it and get President Donald Trump elected. If you're a homeowner, you need to listen to this. When's the last time you checked on your home title? That's the legal proof that you own your house. If you're like me, the answer is never. The problem is, in today's AI and cyber world, scammers are stealing home titles, and your equity is the target. Here's how it works. Criminals forge your signature on one document, use a fake notary stamp, pay a small fee with your county, and boom, your home title has been transferred out of your name. Then they take out loans using your equity or even sell your property. You won't even know it's happened until you get a collection or a foreclosure notice. That's why you need to stop what you're doing and find out today if you're already a victim. Use my promo code Kirk at HometitleLock.com to make sure your title is still in your name. You'll also get a free title history report plus a free 14-day trial of their $1 million triple lock protection. That's 24/7 monitoring of your title, urgent alerts to any changes, and if fraud should happen, they'll spend up to $1 million to fix it. Go to HometitleLock.com now. Use promo code Kirk. That's HometitleLock.com, promo code Kirk. We are here live in London, and I know we're having some tech issues. Let's see if Senator Eric Schmidt can hear me or not. I sure hope so. Senator Schmidt, welcome to the program. Thank you for your patience. How are you doing today?
I'm good. By the way, do you have some pre-debate routine you do? Like, you got like a certain number of push-ups or something? What's the protocol, Charlie?
Well, you know, it's interesting. I try to eat very clean. You got to get your sleep. It's very important. Yep. I always like to have a banana I do like to work out and go for a walk. And then there is the secret weapon, hydration. Almost every study shows that if you are hydrated, you think more clearly, your brain relaxes. So try to drink a lot of water. The only downside, and when I do these 3-hour campus debates, of which I want to come to the University of Missouri and do that, when I overly hydrate, I got to sit there for 3 hours. I got to use the restroom. Pretty terrible.
Yeah.
So no, we're in the big leagues at Oxford and Cambridge. So
You are. You're like our American intellectual prize fighter. We're pulling for you. So
that's funny. I have to write down the full routine. It's a great question, but thank you for joining the program. You're awesome and doing great work. So I want to just first get your reaction to these Robert Hur tapes and the cover-up of Joe Biden's health and his mental frailty. Obviously, we're sorry to hear the news about that he has prostate cancer. We don't wish that upon anybody. This timing of when they dropped the news is awfully suspicious. But who was running the country the last couple of years, Senator Schmidt?
it's a great question, and we ought to have hearings about this, because I was the first senator to call for that constitutional process to go into play to remove him, because he was clearly not competent. Anybody with a half a brain could see that. And when the Hur tapes came, or they never released actually the audio of the tapes, but you got to remember, you go back when they interviewed him, it was about the documents that were, of course, stored in his garage, where Hunter Biden, who had all sorts of dealings with other countries and potentially a drug addict, was living in that house at the same time those documents were in the garage. The only reason they didn't charge him was because they didn't think he was competent to stand trial. So, I mean, all these things were happening at once. Anybody could see it. And if his debate performance wouldn't have been as bad as it was, and I was in the spin room with Rubio and Vance and others, and you could see it playing in real time like everybody else, if it wouldn't have been so bad, they would have literally continued to keep him propped up just so they could have another 4 years. It was all about power and control. And this sort of come to Jesus moment that they're all having now is so phony, because they knew it. But who was running the country? It's a great question. A lot of people have different theories. But it's being run by AutoPen, but who was hitting go? We ought to figure that out.
Yeah, and it's also just this question of what form and structure of government did we have and do we have, which is, if you can have a president who does not know what year he took office, who does not know what year he left office as vice president, does not know what year President Trump actually got elected, then, and the country can still quote unquote run, then is the president nothing more than a kind of ceremonial figurehead? Senator Schmidt.
Well, listen, this is what we're fighting against, Charlie. Glad you sort of framed it like that. We're fighting against this managerial and administrative state that was created really about 100 years ago with Woodrow Wilson, who prior to Joe Biden, I think was the worst president we've ever had in this country. Their dream, the progressives' dream, was to have a government run by experts. And so when COVID happened, it kind of, the veil went down and you could see what they really wanted. It wasn't about elected leadership. It was about Lord Fauci and these other quote unquote experts who knew better than everybody else. So this idea of we the people, they would love to get rid of that. And they would love to get rid of that accountability and have this sort of permanent Washington managerial class run everything. And so this is what they had going, and why people were attacked so viciously if you quote unquote questioned the science, or you asked questions about who was running the country at the time, because they got exactly what they wanted. But that's why it's so important for President Trump to have won, and for him to have gotten his cabinet appointees approved who are reformers, who want to disrupt what we've seen over the last, really an evolution over 100 years. And Republicans were guilty of this too. We've got to get it back to a point where there's real accountability and we fundamentally dismantle the administrative state.
I love that. I'm going to keep you for another segment, Senator. And this is one of the most important fundamental structural issues. And understand that a deep state bureaucracy running the government is not just an American problem. I am here in London, and I just met with Liz Truss, former prime minister, and she said, we have an entire bureaucracy that runs the government, that there is this clash between the sovereign, the people, and the deep state. This worldview has enveloped the entire Western world. Alex Marlow joins us. Alex, welcome to the program. Thank you for taking the time. Lots to cover here. First, I want to get your reaction on the Hur tapes, Joe Biden's mental state. You wrote an entire book, Breaking Biden, and the media's cover of it. Alex, welcome to the program. Your thoughts?
Charlie, very cool. You're in London, by the way. I've got to broadcast from Europe a few times over the years. It's always a thrill. So good for you for doing it, and I'm glad you're bringing the message to the UK. They need you right now. So I got a contrarian take on all this, and I think her tape reveals what we already knew about Biden, and that has been the whole saga here. That I'm kind of blown away that I don't feel like a lot of people have shared the same point of view. But we learned that Biden didn't know where Beau Biden died. Well, we've always known that. He said that Beau Biden died in Iraq over and over again, even though he died of brain cancer. So there was no cover up here. We all knew this. We were all told this over and over again. It's just that the media didn't seem to care until 5 minutes ago, where they were trying to scapegoat Biden for their entire collective failure to beat Donald Trump in the 2024 election.
And so it wasn't a surprise to you and I, but the one of the main reasons I believe the media's approval and trust of the American people has gone to basically nothing has been this particular story. This story in particular, COVID stuff was bad, a lot of other stuff, but this one is particularly really horrifying. I don't even want to say as the media learned its lesson, but why is it, in your estimation, that there was no coverage? Instead, they were covering this up for years.
Yeah, well, first of all, because they knew that their best chance of beating Trump was with Joe Biden, and they don't take down their own people. And so this is what is the real scandal here. And I do believe, Charlie, over time, and maybe it'll take years, maybe it'll take a decade, but I think when people look back on this moment, it's pretty historic what we're witnessing. We are watching the media eat themselves alive, and I don't think they know that we know this is going to happen. But I do think this is ultimately a media scandal, not a Joe Biden scandal, because the truth of the matter is that the media knew full well that Joe Biden was in decline. It was well reported. It was completely available to you. Recall, Charlie, how Joe Biden claimed that he used to not take mental acuity tests, and then he yelled at a black reporter and said that maybe you're high on crack because the reporter asked if he was taking a mental acuity test, even though he said that he had taken them before. So that was all in plain sight, and people like you and me in talk radio in our space, we knew this. But the media acting like they didn't know this now is a big lie. It's a big scandal. It's a gaslighting campaign that's taking place. So they're not trying to own up to it now. No, it's the opposite. They're trying to act like they were duped too by the Bidens, which is so fundamentally dishonest. I think that they're going to really get their comeuppance on this when time has its play.
So let's play here. Let's play cut 177. This then enters in the question of how long has Joe Biden had cancer? Play cut 177, please.
My mother drove us, and rather than us be able to walk. And guess what? The first frost, you know what was happening? You had to put on your windshield wipers to get literally the oil slick off the window. That's why I and so damn many other people I grew up have cancer. And why can't, for the longest time, Delaware had the highest cancer rate in the nation.
So I suppose the question, Alex, how does all this tie in with the prostate cancer news? And how long do you think, because you're really an expert on the Biden family, has he had cancer and have they known about it?
Yeah, it's kind of a funny thing here. I wrote a book on Joe Biden, and I've been following his mental decline for a long time. But I also have a family of cancer doctors. My wife is an oncologist. Her father is. I have an aunt who's an oncologist. So cancer talk is constant in this household. And believe it or not, the stuff in the media reports sounds like it could actually check out. And if you're on X, the Everything app this morning, every single thing in your feed is that this has been a cover up. We had no idea. It's actually a super common diagnosis. And it's one of these things where the prognosis on this thing could be 5 years. Given his age, he could die of something else in this time. There's a lot of treatments that are not super invasive that he could get for this stuff. And the big tell is it's only thus far spread to his bones, even though it's stage 4, which is not good. The bad sign would have been if it's in his liver and lungs. This is something that could easily be missed in screenings. So people acting like it's impossible to miss this stuff in screenings is just not true. But what's interesting is that I love this, Charlie. Everyone is skeptical. No one believes what they're hearing. No one thinks we're getting the truth. Everyone thinks this has been covered up. And that is completely healthy, given the nature of him, his administration, and our media. They've never told us the truth about this guy for 1 second for his entire life. Why would they start doing it today? And it feels like the entire world feels that way. And I love that.
playing into that is, of all places, CNN. Let's play cut 178. It's a longer tape, and then I want Alex to respond. 178.
Timing, Jessica, is just extraordinary. We know from the statement from his personal spokesman that Biden learned of the diagnosis on Friday. Well, what was the biggest Biden story on Friday? It was the release of those audio excerpts from his conversations with Robert Hur back in 2023. This was the audio that Axios obtained, almost certainly from the Trump administration, showing memory lapses. So on the day that story was breaking, Biden was facing this personal news. At least that's according to the statement from his personal spokesman. So you have that as one element of the timing here. And then you have this book coming out, one of the biggest political books in several years. Just so happens two of the best reporters in Washington, Jake Tapper and Alex Thompson, are the authors of it. It's already a bestseller based on the number of pre-orders. And so this book comes out in 2 days, but some of the excerpts have already come out. And it's reignited this debate in Washington and beyond within the Democratic Party about Biden, about whether he should have run for re-election at all.
Yeah, the best reporters. Yeah, that's sure. Alex, you've known this for years, and this man was running for the presidency 10 months ago. He was in a debate 11 months ago against Donald Trump. Your thoughts, Alex?
Yeah, my thoughts is that Jake Tapper and Alex Thompson, these guys are part of the problem. They didn't miss this. They knew full well Biden was in full decline. They didn't do anything about it. Jake Tapper had segments on his show where it was clear he was in mental decline. Tapper is the biggest fraud in all of journalism. He thinks he's a Hollywood star. He's not really a journalist. And this is reprehensible what he's trying to do to sell books. He's spinning this unbelievable web. And I think some people on the left are falling for it, but on the right, I think we see through it. That's why he's had to hire a crisis PR firm, Charlie, because he's taken actually a lot of heat on this stuff, because he is every bit a part of the cover-up he's now sanctimoniously reporting on. It's all a big joke to sell books. It's going to be very effective to sell books, but it should be legacy destroying for him. He's got enough money. People should know he was every bit a part of the cover-up, and now he's trying to exploit it. And he's trying to scapegoat Joe Biden when it was really the media and the entire Democrat establishment that blew that entire election to Donald Trump.
Let's play cut 200.
There are people who knew and said nothing. And that is a crime against this republic. And I think the Democrats are going to pay for a long time for being a part of what is now being revealed to be a massive cover-up.
Alex, do you think that there is long-lasting, well, there should be, but do you think there will be long-lasting political consequences? I do think that the American people will no longer trust what the media and what high-level Democrats say about anything because of this story. Alex Marlowe.
Yeah, I think so. And I think the media really thinks that they can get off scot-free on this by just blaming Joe Biden, scapegoating Joe Biden. I think that's the plan here. That's what they want to do, is that Biden and a small team of people who are going to be politically irrelevant, they're the only ones responsible. I think it's going to backfire, and I think the entire media establishment is going to have hell to pay for this. I think the public's not going to trust them. I think it's already happening. They think they're helping their own cause. I think they're hurting their own cause here, and that's glorious for us. I'll tell you, Charlie, I spent some time over the weekend. I went to a famous prep school in Beverly Hills, and I was talking to a lot of the people there at a reunion over the weekend. A lot of these people very active in Democrat politics, connected with big people in Hollywood and in the Democrat apparatus. They're completely demoralized. They know they have no one to go to. They have nothing nice to say about their bench. They are completely on their heels right now, on their back feet, and they are downtrodden. When they saw me roll up, their faces sink because they know we're ascendant. And it is great news right now what's happening for us. It's a huge opportunity that we cannot blow ourselves.
Yeah, so talk more about that, contextualize it, because we as conservatives are always thinking that the left is in a power position, they have a plan, and they're ready to go. And I think that we on the right are usually victim of, I don't want to say overestimating, but thinking that there's always a conspiracy behind every left-wing decision, which sometimes there is, by the way. Sometimes there is, but not all.
It's a good default.
But wait. Yeah, but what you're saying, though, and again, when I talk to Democrats, I get the same sort of, the best term I could use is demoralization. They're just demoralized, as if they're like the Buffalo Bills after losing, what is it, the fourth or fifth Super Bowl in a row? Was it 4?
Right.
After the fourth Super Bowl, they're like, come on. I mean, how many more times do I have to do this? And do you feel as if the Democrat Party in their primary selection, you think about it, Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, those are 3 very safe picks that were not really done, quote unquote, using democratic means. Bernie Sanders won the primary in 2016. Is that going to change? Will the base of the Democrat Party roar? And how should we react to it?
Things are looking good. Our bench is looking really dynamite. The names Vance, Rubio, et cetera, come to mind, and there's so many others. But their bench looks very weak, and they know it. They know it's weak. And so they're going to try to have to find someone who's probably unfamiliar to this audience to lead the party. I'm not talking about just being a nominee in 2028, but just to get some momentum and some energy. But they do not have a mainstream person who is firing up their base, and they all know it now, and they're all looking around like they have no idea what to do. And so that's, I think, why they've got all this time to complain about Joe Biden when they're realizing they're actually complaining about themselves.